Okay, welcome to this week's lab. Last week we went ahead and created the server that we're going to be using for this lab, the January Active Directory server. So this week we're going to go ahead and start by turning our server on, logging in, and getting to this point where Server Manager is up and we're ready to start doing some configuration. That might take you a little bit of time, so feel free to pause the video until you get to this point, and we can go on once you're to this point. So now what we're going to do is the very first thing we need to do is give this an IP address, just like we did in our server last week. We're going to right click on our network settings, go to Internet Options, click on Change Adapter option. And then once that pops up, we'll go into our adapter, click on Properties. And then we'll go into our TCP/IP v4 settings and click Properties. And we're just going to give it an IP address, just like we did before, 192.168.10.10. Yes, we're using the same IP address as we did last time. That's okay because we're never going to have the two servers on at the same time, so it's not a big deal. And then again, preferred DNS, we want our DNS to be this server because we are going to install DNS along with Active Directory because you cannot have an Active Directory server without DNS. So we went ahead and did that. The next step that we're going to do is we're going to change the name of this computer. So we're going to right click on our start button, click on System. Once System pops up, we'll go and change in the system info. And then we'll change the computer name. We want the computer name changed before we install Active Directory, because once you have Active Directory installed, changing anything, IP address, computer name, is nearly impossible. It's kind of a pain to do any of it, and you don't want to change your computer's name once you've created an Active Directory domain. So we'll click on System Info inside of here, and then we click Change Settings, and then we click on Change. And this says January server 2019. We're just going to call this January AD server 2019 and hit OK. Changing that name gives it a name that we can guarantee we know is the Active Directory server. Go ahead and hit close. This will require a restart, so we'll go ahead and let it restart. And then once it comes back to the booted up aspect, we'll go ahead and do some more configuration. Okay, now that the server manager is up, we can go ahead and start finishing this aspect. Before we get started on installing the role, we do want to make sure that we have a password on our administrator account, and right now we don't. So we're going to come up here and we're going to go ahead and click Control-Alt-Delete, and this is going to give us the opportunity to change our password. There is no old password, so we're just going to put in a new password, capital C, NTP @SSWRD, capital C, NTP @SSWRD. That gives us a password that will be complex enough and manageable enough for us to actually install Active Directory. If we wouldn't have done that, we would have been given an error during the install process that would have made us do it anyways. So we have that done. Now we can come into Server Manager and we can click on Manage, and we're going to go ahead and install the Active Directory role into our server. So we're going to click Manage and click Add a Role. This first page is nothing big. We just click Next on that. This is a role-based or feature-based install, so we click Next. And then it tells us to select a server from the server pool. We only have the one server right now, so we go ahead and click Next. And at this point, we want to go ahead and add Active Directory domain services and hit add features. And we want to add DNS. Again, Active Directory and DNS work hand in hand. They have to be installed together for Active Directory to work properly. You can install DNS separately on a machine, but you can't install Active Directory without DNS. So hit next again, hit next again, hit next one more time, and hit install. This process is going to take a little while, but once it's done installing, the close button will come up. It'll actually come up before it's done installing, believe it or not, but it'll say that it's installed and that it needs some features, and the close button will be available. So we'll fast forward to that part here. Okay, now you can see that the yellow notification icon has popped up behind our wizard, and it says configuration requires additional information. So that went away. We can click on our yellow notification, and it says configuration requires additional information. Promote the server to a domain controller. We're going to go ahead and click on that. Once we do that, it creates another wizard where we can create our domain controller. Now, this is a new forest that we're creating. So we want to add a new forest, and we're just going to name it what we're naming our server. In this scenario, we're just going to go ahead and name it January. And then I'm going to use my initials .com. You can use your initials. If you're in class, you have an actual seat assignment, such as January 1 or January 2, wherever it is that you're sitting. So go ahead and make sure you fill that out. It could be February 2 or March or whatever. But for the online students, January and then your initials is fine. Click next. And it's going to ask us what our functionality level is going to be once that window pops up. Because this is the only domain controller in our domain, and we are the only domain in the forest, our functionality level can stay at the 2016 level. So we don't have to change either of these. We do have to type in a password. So we can type in our CNT password. All right, so let's go ahead and put in our password, CNTPA SSWRD, CNTPA SSWRD. Click next here. It tells us that there's a warning that we can't create a delegation. This is because we're not on the internet. You don't need to worry about that. So you can click next. And then it's going to auto-populate our NetBIOS. Whoa, that shouldn't have popped up like that. It's okay, not a big deal. We'll minimize that. Auto-populates our NetBIOS for us, so we can click next. If it doesn't auto-populate, just give it some time. It will auto-populate. We can click next on this, next on this. And finally, we can click install. This process is going to take a little while, and then when it's done, it will ask us to reboot. So we'll go ahead and reboot, and we'll see you back here when we're back up and running. Okay, now that we've logged back in and everything's back up, we can see that Server Manager's up and running, and we have our Active Directory available as one of the roles on our network. So we can actually open up our Start menu. And once we open Start menu, we can go into the Administrative Tools, Windows Administrative Tools, and click on Active Directory Users and Computers. And this is where the rest of your lab will take place. So go ahead and finish up the rest of your lab and make sure that you fill out the lab manual as well as your trouble ticket form with everything that you learned. Hope you enjoyed this lab. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.